People always ask, what's your food? And the quick answer is, it's anything and everything. It's not a technique or a specific ingredient. It is the emotion, it is the environment, it is the people around the table, it's the story of that food. It's so much more than what you just think of like food. That is when I started to shift my thinking of the responsibility of what it means to be a food writer and a recipe developer. I was like, that's it. I am going to actually do the opposite of what I was told, and that is, don't be the gay pastry chef. Don't let your sexuality dictate who you are. And that's when I started really finding writing about food with a queer voice.
Welcome back to the Perfect Bite podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Perkins. In a time when outrageous platings are still the Instagrammable rage, there's something special about a simply delicious treat that feels like coming home. That gooey, stick-to-your-ribs kind of comfort we remember from childhood. And it's always the right time for everyone to feel like they have a home, a family they can share these seemingly ordinary but special moments with. Today's guest has compiled their favorite comfort desserts with a twist in a cookbook that's also an ode to family, no matter who they are and how they came into your life. Please welcome pastry chef and author of Potluck Desserts, Justin Burke. Justin!
Hello.
Hi! I am so good. I'm so happy I get to talk with you today.
Me too. I'm really excited.
Oh, this is going to be so great. Again, you and I are talking early fall, but honestly, that just means baking season to me.
You're
like
right.
Just really leaning into it. So
this is like the moment to prepare mentally and physically for all the baking.
Everyone, it's time to start lifting so that you can roll out your cookie dough better. Maybe get a couple of KitchenAids in the kitchen going. Who knows?
Yeah, it's time. Don't wait.
Can't wait. So I always love to take things a little bit further back here, all the way back to the beginning. When did you first fall in love with food? What were those favorite foods you had as a kid? What was eating like growing up in your house? Did you always have a bit of a sweet tooth?
Man, food. Food has just always been like such a big part of who I am. So like growing up, I grew up in the middle of the desert in Southern California. So if you have seen the movie Aaron Brockovich, that is my hometown. So like,
oh, wow.
Yeah, not like city or like what people think of like, oh, you lived in Southern California. Like I lived out in the middle of nowhere. And like there was always food, and my grandmother, she was always cooking, and it was very like Midwestern because she's originally from Ohio, like very Midwestern. And then my bio dad's father, so my paternal grandfather, he really embraced being a pioneer. Like he's like, my family are pioneers, and they like took a trail here to the west from New York. And I'm like, okay. And so I think as a kid, I was just exposed to just like very rustic, all your food was homemade. Going out to a restaurant, if we did, was like for a special occasion. But food has just kind of always been in the background of my life. So as a kid and like teenager, I was like, I'm going to go to culinary school and be a pastry chef. Not because I like fell in love with pastry, because I certainly was not exposed to laminated doughs or anything in the middle of my hometown. I just knew stuff out of the box, but I was intrigued by it. And there was what I didn't know then was like the science behind it was what was intriguing me. But I mean, this is late 90s, early 2000s. People, you weren't encouraged to go to culinary school. Like it was kind of looked down upon. So I did not. And so I went to college, and then I did grad school. And when I was in grad school earning 2 masters, my concentration was land reform and food policy. So like it just played a part. And then literally had a horrible day at work and quit my job without telling my then husband. I quit the job and started working in a restaurant. And then a lot of other stuff happened. But yeah, I think just food has always been a part of me. I think it's just been a journey of me understanding like how much of it is a part of me and how I fit in with it. And like, what's the synergy?
Yeah. So all of these things just really led into each other. I'd love to hear, you mentioned food policy. Are you someone who's then still really passionate about where food comes from and how we're dealing with it? 2025 in particular is a really just interesting, to say the least, time.
What 2025 is.
This is a really difficult time.
Yeah.
And we need to support each other.
100%. So I went to Brandeis University and I did a dual master's program in sustainable international development and peace and conflict resolution. And
You should be president.
no, thank you.
Please be a diplomat. Please help us.
So that was I was like, I'm going to be a diplomat and I want to be this peace builder. And like, I've always carried the weight of the world on my shoulders. I mean, I'm 100% such an Aries. Like, I see a problem, I identify the problem, I want to fix it. And
Boyfriend.
yeah, it's a blessing and a curse because you can get so frustrated and you can't solve it. And my goal was to work for like the UN or the EU. And I've always been the kind of person, like, I always have a critical eye. Like, I always am critical with the best intentions. And I just didn't see this path of working for these organizations where I would actually be contributing to good versus am I just solving a problem to have a new problem be created for me to continue to work. It was like, keep a problem going so you can continue to keep working. And that just didn't work for me. But food, like, still love land reform and agriculture and food policy. And I'm so intrigued of how people can literally use food as a weapon, like how government and leaders can withhold food from neighboring countries or even their own citizens, and it's like weaponized.
Yeah, food deserts, and like you said, we're withholding food from folks. I'm going to go down a rabbit hole, basically. It's just this very broken system.
Yeah, I think my first introduction to just like how broken the system is was where I grew up. Like, we're in the middle of the desert. If you want to go somewhere to get like really interesting ingredients that you don't see in like your everyday grocery stores, or if you even wanted to go to a farmer's market, that's like an 1.5 to 2 hour drive. Like, it's not easy. And so we had grocery stores that then when Walmart opened up in our hometown, like so many small businesses, like the marts, the bodegas, like all these places that like were these small pocket neighborhoods, livelihoods, like just completely wiped out, and we're using Walmart. And now we're not getting like nutritious food. We're not getting stuff local. We're not being educated on what grows in our own environment of where we are. So I think as a child, I didn't have the terminology or the resources to understand my feelings, but I knew this was not right and I did not jive with it. So like, I was always a curious person. I'm curious by nature. And as a kid, I was like, something's up with food. I don't like it.
Your curiosity was piqued, and it was probably one of those first times that you saw people that were your, outside family, they're members of the community, and they're getting displaced by something that essentially was kind of like just washing them away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just did not understand it.
Yeah. So you were feeling these inklings.
Yeah.
I should go to culinary school. I should be a pastry chef. Essentially, your aha moment was, I can't do this anymore. You hit your breaking point. What was the first restaurant that you started in? What was that experience like? Were you on the pastry side of things?
Yeah, so it's very interesting, and I never recommend my journey to other people who want to get into
Gotta take the leap sometimes.
The culinary schools and the food industry. So two things were happening at the same time. I was living in Boston. I lived in Boston for a very long time. And my then husband and I were starting the process of surrogacy. And it's unbelievably expensive. And we were both working nonprofit jobs and living in a brownstone.
Oh, gosh.
Like, how were we going to afford this? And he knew that I loved to bake and that was just fun. And so he said, why don't you start an online bake sale people can contribute, like they can buy your baked goods and we can put that money aside for surrogacy. Because some people said like, oh, do you like a GoFundMe page? And I'm like, I'm not going to ask people to give me money so I can have a kid. But
Right.
doing a bake sale themed less like a handout and more of like, okay, we're trading goods.
Yes. Very sweet too. Like, hey, I'm going to take the concept of the bake sale and
we
give it the best reason.
We called it the Baby Fun Bake Sale. And this was 2000. Well, so like online was not happening for food. There was no roadmap. And my friend who had just did really well on Top Chef came back and she left her job and started doing a pop-up. And she wanted to help us earn extra money. And she knew that she had a platform and was going to get a large audience that was going to come to her pop-up. So she invited me to make these gourmet Pop-Tarts that I was making. And she made donuts. And I don't know, there was like 300 to 400 items that we made collectively. And we sold out in like 31 minutes. And someone like,
oh my God,
someone was like, oh, when is the next one? And we don't discuss this being an ongoing thing. But at the same time, we said, oh, see you next Saturday. And we ended up doing the pop-ups. And we did them for an entire year, every weekend, sometimes during the week. And we went on a national tour. So that was happening. And I was getting a taste of what I had been dreaming about. I was in these different restaurants. I was in a different restaurant every day. And I was like downloading all of the good and the bad of this industry at the same time. And one day, I think it was the Boston Globe, we did an event and we're like on the front page and they were like, pastry chef Justin Burke. And I was like, oh shit, like I'm a pastry chef. Which was not well received within the industry because, and rightfully so, like I came out of nowhere and I was getting all this attention. And I think my industry started in the limelight and then I had to like learn. I was still like green as green can be. And my mistakes were public. Like I was messy. I had to be messy and I had to learn to be comfortable being messy and owning mistakes. But so that was happening. And then I couldn't do my job, my day-to-day job. So I literally walked into my friend's restaurant. So my first restaurant I ever worked at was the Salty Pig in Boston, and I was a host.
There you go.
I was like, I will be a host. And fortunately, the kitchen was open, and so I could watch the chefs doing their magic in the kitchen. I could watch front of house, learn how to like move and manage the chaos. And my friend was the operations director at the time, and so I was just like picking her brain, and I was like, I joke, it was like microdosing of every angle of the business. I was like microdosing and trying to like figure out like how this all works and how it's going to work for me.
Yes. And I understand, but I do resent that like your peers maybe weren't as welcoming or weren't giving you credit. The whole point of, say, entrepreneurialism is breaking boundaries and breaking rules. And so I get it. You are earning your tiger stripes maybe in a different order or in a different way, but it doesn't mean that you weren't worthy of a title or that you weren't worthy of wanting to do this as well.
Yeah,
but
I think too, like looking at it, like so many years later, like this was the moment where food media made chefs into celebrities.
Yes.
And everyone was clawing for that. Like, if you wanted to be a successful chef or restaurateur, you had to be a celebrity. You had to be a top chef. You had to be in all these like random shows on the Food Network. Like, it was just like, you have to do this. And I think when they saw someone who they didn't know me, so they didn't know what my internal ambitions were. They're just like, who's this guy? Like, he just wants to have a baby.
Right. Like, he came out of nowhere. I've been working for X school.
I can see it. They're like, he's riding on the coattails of his friend who just came off the Top Chef. And I'm like, okay, like, it was just my first taste of like public scrutiny.
Yes. And, you know, they were just jealous that, frankly, you figured out the marketing and PR that they had wanted.
Yeah. I mean,
because
and
you had a niche, you read something different.
also that was my undergrad degree, was marketing and PR. I think
You put
maybe
it to
I
good
could,
work.
yeah, I don't know. I look at it now and I'm like, glad I did it. Don't want to do that again.
Yes. I get that. When I went through my first startup, I also felt very like publicly scrutinized. I
Yeah.
legit like had people writing about me online, and I was like, this is very different than I experienced.
Oh.
Interesting. Or like, oh, that's something that we could have privately talked about if you felt a certain way, like just maturely. And it's this interesting thing of if you suddenly give yourself to others and you open yourself to others, you express your goals, you build something that maybe they like. People feel like they have the opportunity to have a piece of you then, or to shape what they think you are. And they don't realize all the struggles that you're going through and everything you're putting into it on the back end.
Yeah, I think too, like when you become something for the public to look at, you are consumed. They are consuming you. And
Yes.
and it's a very hard thing because there's no education on how to put yourself in a position where the public wants to consume you so much that they want to be you, or
Or hurt you because of
hurt
it.
you, and they want your life. And I think too, it's like such a like thoughtful experiment, like learning like some of the not so great parts of humanity. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there is this piece where I think people want to be doing their own thing and they want to be congratulated for it as well. And they want to have a spotlight, but you're like, hey, do you know how much work I'm putting into this on the back end? And it ultimately can't be about your ego when you're trying to put something good out there.
I think so. When I kind of had my first breaking point of like, what is my life now? And why, as a person who wants to be a chef and like in the food and hospitality industry, like, why can't I just do a good job and just be good at it and not have to be performative and like a voice for so many brands and be on TV? Because I always think like there's really great doctors, there's really great lawyers, and we don't see us making them like these celebrities. Like, of course, there's some doctors and lawyers and other professions that are become celebrities, but you don't see it in other industries and fields where it's just like, this is like a benchmark to measure your success. And so I was just like, you know what? I'm good. I'm happy and I'm proud of my work and contributions to the world. Then that's all that matters. And that it kind of helps me reset and take the next step of this wild journey.
100%. So your son Jasper did come into the world.
He was born.
He's 6.5 now. He was born. You did have some major life shifts at that time. Like you're going through all of this, you're feeling the chaos. What's one more thing that you had a personal shift here? Where do you think that really led you next? What was the moment that you started really leaning into no, I should be proud of exactly what I'm doing, who I am, and not let anyone suppress it?
Yeah. So everything was like taken off in Boston. And then my ex-husband and I had two very significant deaths in our family, and it wrecked us. And I think when two people are going through that situation at the same time, is also very hard to show up for one another.
Yeah.
But we decided to move to North Carolina because that's where his parents were living. And my mom's originally from Charlotte, North Carolina. So I was like, you know what? We'll move temporarily to the South, which everyone in our friend group in Boston was like, what the hell? And we'll just save some money. I'll take a break from this chef thing. Like, this was chaotic. And we'll have a baby. Well, surprise, I met two people who had opened up a restaurant and like 6 months prior to us moving there, and were named Bon Appetit's best new restaurant in this little town outside of Charlotte. And
holy cow.
They did not have a pastry chef role for me, but they knew how badly I wanted to learn more about the industry and the business. And so they hired me first as an assistant front of house manager. Then I became a service manager. Then I became both the service manager and the pastry chef. And then I became the executive pastry chef, but still oversaw both, because then we opened up a second restaurant and oversaw front of house. And then I oversaw in tandem with the chef owner, like both front of house and back of house. And so I learned it all. And I was very fortunate to have received for the first time, like genuine positive attention for the work that I was doing. And it really taught me it's more than just, if you're going to have a restaurant, it's more than just running like the front house, back house. Like it's about running the whole business. It's understanding the pros and cons of publicity, what it means if you land on that best new restaurant list. Are you prepared for it? What does it mean when food media requests a recipe to feature you in their glossy magazine? It does not mean send them the recipe that says use 2 quart cups of chopped parsley. You have to write it for a home.
Develop.
And that is when I started like seeing this like full circle, like global machine working, and my brain for some reason fits in it all. Like I fit in it all and it works for me. So we did that. So then Jasper was born, and I knew that I did not want to work the hours of being in the industry and be not a present parent. Like I come from divorced parents, a very fractured family. I did not want that experience, and I would just wanted to be a present parent. So I started to food write and recipe develop. I had made really good friends with editors and writers for the magazines that were featuring me. For some reason, like my nonprofit brain was like, steward these relationships. And I'm so glad I did.
Yes.
And yeah, and like you said, at the same time, this is when my ex-husband and I were like, we've been together since we were 18, and I think we're just best friends, and no longer our relationship has evolved to something different. And that was very difficult. But I think having come from a divorced family and him coming not from that world, we just had this like exchange of communication of like, okay, this sucks. It sucks. Our relationship's changing. That's going to suck for anyone. But what a great opportunity for us to raise a child, to show them how relationships change and how that is okay and how you manage that. It was just a very tough couple of months, but we gave each other space and we were there for each other. And now, because we both remarried, so Jasper's like, hi, I'm Jasper, and I have poor dad. Like, he is so proud.
Jasper's the luckiest guy in the world.
But I also love when he says that, because then I like look at the people he says that and they're like, so what do we got here? Like throuple, polycule. And I'm like, oh no, just like 2 parents that got divorced and then got remarried. And now instead of saying like, these are our step parents, like that's 4 dads. And I think the best thing about it too is our partners add so much more to Jasper's life, because they bring new perspectives and personalities that neither my ex-husband and I and my co-parent have. And so it's like, Jasper's just like the best parts of all 4 of us. And I'm like, you're going to be a good unit.
Yes. Jasper's literally the future. I am so glad that you felt that you were able to look at past moments or cycles that you all saw, and you said, we can do this healthier. This doesn't have to be some big blow up. This doesn't have to be the end. And in fact, it's a lot of really beautiful beginnings. And you were then able to give the space to be yourself and say, I'm going to lean into the parts of me that love being a pastry chef, but also the food media side, the food media brand that you were starting to build that's led you here to you and I talking and all the other placements you've had. I see the book everywhere now, which is so cool.
Thank you.
So you were doing recipe development, you were doing food writing, you were honing your pastry skills as well at this time. When did you decide that it was time to write a cookbook? Our wonderful friend Sally brought us here together today.
Yeah.
What was the conceptualization behind this?
Yeah. So from early on, people were like, you should write a cookbook. And I think it was just one of those things that was said without really thinking about it. Like, oh, you are a professional pastry chef and you should have a cookbook. It's like when people say, oh, when are you going to get your show like Martha Stewart? I'm like, no,
Yeah.
this works. But let's backtrack real quick. So before the summer before Jasper was born, so he was born in December of 2018, July of 2018, it was the first time I wrote like opinion piece. It was for Eater, and it was called How Homophobia Almost Made Me Quit Being a Chef. And this theme of like talking about the dark side of the industry was beginning to gain traction. And this was the first time that like my experience, like homophobia, transphobia, misogyny, like all this stuff was spoken first person perspective versus it being like reported on. And, I thought this was just a fun practice of I'm writing for a food publication and nothing huge is going to come from this. If anything, this was therapy for me. And my editor at the time, Hillary, she changed my life. We just chipped away at it. And then the final product, it published. And that is when I learned that when you share a personal story that connects with so many people in a community, that you are now like a North Star for them. You are someone who they feel that they can trust and reach out to. And so my DMs on Instagram blew up. Like, I'm so-and-so from Kansas. I'm in Canada. I'm in Ireland. Like, how did you get out of this? What are the resources? Can you recommend a restaurant chef that you think is a safe space for me to work at? Can I come work for you? And it was hard because I was not prepared for that. But it taught me that I had a platform. It was the first moment where I was like, I have a platform. Whether it's small, whatever, I have a platform. And I have the capability of reaching a lot of people. And that is when I started to shift my thinking of the responsibility of what it means to be a food writer and a recipe developer. And that's when I shifted this perspective of I do not want to be someone of the 40. Like, I do not want to ever tell someone how they should be cooking or that their food that they're making is not good. You should be doing it this way. And I also think at the time, everything like what we were trying to cook at home, we were trying to be these celebrity chefs. We were trying to turn our homes into restaurants. Everything has to be Instagrammable. So it was just like another aha moment. And so then I stepped back and I started to dissect and curate what worked for me, what's not working. Like, I'm a student for life. I was like doing my research of what's like hitting, what's not landing, and finding my voice, my niche. And that's when I came across John Birdsall's writing on queer food and what he continues to do. I was like, that's it. I am going to actually do the opposite of what I was told, and that is not to be that gay chef. Don't be the gay pastry chef. Don't let your sexuality dictate who you are. And I think I did such a disservice to myself by pushing that down that it was only natural that it was going to bubble up. And that's when I started like really finding like writing about food with a queer voice. The cookbook was something that was a process because I had this vision of like a cookbook that was for the queer, trans, and ally community. But I think I was food queer because it's like people always ask that, like, what's queer food? And the quick answer is it's anything and everything. Like, it's actually not a tangible thing. Like, it's not a technique or a specific ingredient. It is the emotion. It is the environment. It is the people around the table. It's the story of that food. It's so much more than what you just think of like food. Right. And a lot of publishers that I was meeting with just didn't get it. They're like, can you just do some eyes? Or, oh, you're a pastry chef. Like, you have a really amazing following and you're all over media right now. You should be doing what you do in restaurants. And I'm like, well, that just completely defeats what I'm like trying not to do. Like, trying not to make people be a restaurant pastry chef. So it was like 10 years of defeating conversations. And a lot of people just did not want me to talk about my queerness. They were like, no one wants to hear from a queer person who's a single parent at the time. And you won't relate to anyone in America. And I'm like, no, actually, like I would relate to so many people in America.
Yeah.
And I just got defeated. And then 2020 happened, and we all remember that year. And Sally, my agent, she was like interviewing people who were on this journey of trying to get a cookbook published. And her and I met. I was just like, yeah, I'll tell you about my pains. And in the passing, though I'm pretty sure Sally was like, knowing Sally well enough now, she was like, I see something.
Yes.
It was like, it's the way she like prompted the question. She was like, if you were to write a cookbook, what would that cookbook be right now? And truthfully, like it was a matter of 2 weeks before that conversation where I thought, potlucks, queer potlucks, that is how it's going to work. This is how it's going to connect it and make people understand the point of this book. And I was like, oh, Potluck Desserts, like queer potluck storytelling. And I think the responsible thing as a food writer and developer is I don't want to make this like avant-garde pastry cookbook first. I want to go back to basics, like how I started, because I'm self-taught. Yes. And then Sally, weeks later, she was like, I have a publisher I think I want to pitch this to. And I was like, what are we doing here?
You're like, really? Wow.
We threw the proposal together and Countryman became my publisher.
My goodness. So tell us a little bit more about Queer Potlucks. What's the history behind this? What's the culture? And how it really shaped everything that you put into this book today?
Yeah, so Queer Potlucks, and I always like to make this little side note. Queer community did not invent potlucks. Like potlucks are all over.
People love a potluck. Yeah.
But potlucks in the queer community have become such an important part of our lives. I talk about this in the book. Like in San Francisco, there was a lesbian couple. This is during the time when it was very unsafe for women to be out in the streets, even more so lesbians. And this was also the same time that there were like restaurants and bars for gay men, but there was nothing really for lesbian women. And so they decided to just host a couple of their friends and do this like potluck thing that then snowballed into this ongoing collective movement of these queer potlucks where they were inviting people that they knew, but also inviting members of the community that they just met. So like queer youth, runaways, people who were kicked out of their homes, like were coming into these spaces. And this is where chosen family was beginning to become established. And I think the beautiful part of this is, you know, when you bring a recipe, there's always a story behind that recipe at a potluck. And for like members of the queer and trans community, the recipes that we typically bring are blood family recipes. Whether or not we have support from our blood family, like those are the things that we hold on to and cherish. And what happens is we're rewriting the narrative and we're rewriting that recipe to fit who we are and no longer who we thought we had to be or was told to be. And this is where you start pulling in oral history. Queer history has not been well documented. It is very hard to find a lot of facts and resources, but what we have achieved in queer spaces around food is we have used food as the medium to safeguard and steward our history, the legacies of individuals, and we share that every time we go to a potluck. And we're like, oh, this is Peter's partner's cookies that he made during like all the works of the AIDS clinics. And like, you just start learning about stuff and then you contribute your story and your legacy and your history. And so that's the heart of the book. And I love it so much. Like, love it so much.
I know you're making me feel a lot right now. And I think it's because every person's story deserves to be heard and to be cherished. And I think food is such a gorgeous medium as well, that we get to see that through, whether it's, again, a recipe passed down for generations and you're like, oh, this is just how we did it. Or I love too that you take something that someone might recognize and you add that little twist. You add that little, and here's how to reinvent it, and here's how to let it shine in a totally different way.
Yeah, that's like when people ask me like, what's your style of baking? Like, I think it's true. Like, I'm American comfort, like self-taught, but I've done a lot of educating myself of French techniques and other techniques, like European, and drawing the similarities of how in America we've like turned into something that we try to claim as ours. But you can find the similarities. And what I've learned in teaching home cooks and bakers is giving them those aha moments of, oh, like, I actually am making laminated dough, or I am laminating something when I make biscuits at home. I'm like, yes, you are. Every time you fold the dough and the butter, like, that's how you get the layers. And so it's really fun in this book with these recipes to spark a food memory of nostalgia, but then at the same time have them develop like this new food memory and be like, wow. Like, I have a recipe in there, like the strawberry pretzel salad, which was like super Midwestern and Southern.
I was about to say, you just hit my Central Illinois holidays at the farm hard. And something called a salad that has like whipped cream in it.
Yeah, and it's just so funny because, I mean, it's not a pretty dessert. It's messy, but it's like so good. And what I do for the cookbook, and it's a very intentional thing that it's the last recipe in the book because it's probably the most flashy looking one. It's kind of like, this is what book 2 would look like. But I make it, instead of in like a rectangular casserole dish, it's made in a springform pan. And I make the fillings a little bit more dense so it can stand on its own. And it's such a beautiful jewel like when it is taken out of the springform pan. And it's still, at the core, pretzels, cream cheese whipped cream, strawberry jello. Still like the essence of strawberry pretzel salad, just a little glow up. And
an elevation.
It's fun. It's fun.
I enjoy that you thought of putting that at the end of the book, knowing that your next chapter literally could be coming. It feels very Beyonce of you. It feels very like, you know what albums are coming next.
Yeah.
You just have to wait and see.
Very Beyonce, very Taylor Swift Easter egg.
Yes, yes. I just love that type of creativity. And I know it must be so hard. Do you have any favorites that are kind of your go-to? I know choosing one, baby, must be just impossible.
Yeah. You know, I love them all. But I mean, we're getting into the holiday season. I really loved, so most people know it as like lazy daisy cake, which I have issues when we call recipes lazy or something. It's like telling the person who's making it, like, this is the bare minimum of what you can do. And I don't know. It's just like in the back of my mind, I'm just like, that seems degrading. So I call it You're Not Lazy Daisy Cake. And typically it's a yellow cake, but I use a spice cake. Like, I make a spice cake. And then at the very end, after it's baked, you have this like condensed milk, brown sugar, coconut topping, almost like German chocolate cake frosting that you put on top, and then broil it. And so it gets caramelized. So good. It's like, so good.
Holy cow.
Should eat it right.
I love it. Like a creme brulee essence to it.
Yeah. I love that one.
There's so many good ones.
I love them all.
Yes. And I love that we're chatting now because not only is your book an excellent gift idea, everyone, ding, 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 but again, like Friendsgiving, Thanksgiving, the different holidays coming up for the season.
Thanksgiving. Okay. You want to shock people. I have a gooey butter corn cake. So taking, the Midwestern gooey butter cake, but instead I use cornmeal and make this geeked out cornbread gooey butter cake thing. And like when we did it for the photo shoot, my food stylist, she was like, I'm never making cornbread again for Thanksgiving. I'm just making this, and they can argue if it's a dessert or not. I don't care.
That sounds oh my God. Ooh, okay. That might be one that I add to the repertoire because like, even though I love to make pies, just because, again, like I've got a family recipe for the filling that I'm like, the spices just happen to be the perfect blend. I don't know when or how they came up with, who knows, but especially if you're going to like different sizes of family, I'm like, okay, I'm not allowed to do the pie. So there we go. gooey butter corn cake.
Gooey butter corn cake.
And be like, and just love it.
Yeah.
So talk to us about the cookbook process. I know conceptually you were working on this in your head for almost 10 years or so.
Yeah.
How long did it actually take from we're submitting a proposal to, oh my gosh, we're shooting and getting to have fun with food styling to the baby's here?
Baby's here. So from start to finish, it took 3 years. And it originally was going to be published in 2024, but we had some life things happen, and I just went to Sally and I was like, we got to push it back. And they were super fine with that. So 3 years, I'm going to be honest with you. I had a really hard time writing this book. As a food writer, you write and develop a recipe, like one recipe, submit it to the publisher, to the editor. When you're writing a collection, you have to learn how to make everything flow. Does it make sense? And I had to draw back like my menu writing and development when I was in the restaurant of like, does this flow? Do things complement each other?
Yes.
Am I doing the opposite of what I'm trying to do? And I made the fatal mistake of not, after testing a recipe and everything, immediately writing it down. I just started like cataloging it, and then I went back to write them. And I was like, oh, what did I write here? What's this chicken scratch? Like, what was I thinking? And so that was a mistake for the first couple of months. And then sometimes you can do this. It doesn't happen all the time. I submitted my manuscript and then I did the photo shoot. Sometimes you do either the full photo shoot or part of the photo shoot, still working on the manuscript. Basically, you like turn the manuscript and the photos all at the same time. So then we did the photo shoot. And I did that with Brian Samuels and Katrine Kelty, who are based in Boston and Portland, Maine. And it was important for me to go back home to Boston, where it all started from. And Katrine, my food stylist and prop stylist, she was like, let's use my old 18-something farmhouse. And
wow,
it was just Brian, Katrine, and me. Like, no other help. And our biggest challenge was, how do you create queer representation and imagery in a cookbook? And so that is why we have a disco ball on the cover of the cookbook. And that's, if you look at like the details, like this is one of those books where like you can just read it and get a lot out of it. You can also use it just for recipes, but every time you go back to it and revisit it, you're going to find something new. All these little like Easter eggs, but it's like
without doing it in like that cheesy, like, oh, let's just throw flags everywhere.
It was very important to me.
Make everything rainbow color.
I was like, to my publisher, I was like, under no circumstances are we putting a pride flag on the cover of this book. Under no circumstances are we like being campy. This needs to be able to like really represent authenticity of our everyday lived in lives. And it's also potlucks. Potlucks are not a beautiful curated experience. They are hodgepodge things. So it was fun for Katrina and Brian. We literally talk to each other every day on a group chat, and they are ready for round 2. So submit that. And then it goes into art direction and editing and copywriting, and that was fun.
I mean, writing is so personal when it's something you've built, something you're producing, then I'm sure every edit almost feels like you're like, I got to build up my skin because it's not meant to be against you.
When it came to the copywriting for the recipes, I did include both measurements of ingredients. But I didn't want people to think they needed to be weighing their ingredients to be making these desserts. Like, I really tried to explain to them, like, yes, there was a time and a place where we weigh our ingredients, but like, that is not right now. I just want you to get comfortable in your kitchen, baking. Like, let's find the joy in doing this than the anxiety and stressors that we are forced to believe we must have. And so when the copy editing was coming back, they're like, your weight measurements don't seem to be cohesive recipe to recipe. And I'm like, I know, like, it's kind of the nature of these types of recipes. And so it was a learning curve. for everyone.
Yeah.
How do these type of books get made? So that was just really fun to be able to be part of that process. And the book came out in June.
So we're a couple months in. Again, congratulations. I have been seeing Potluck Desserts on different Bon Appetits lists of top cookbooks and other amazing food media outlets. What are you doing from your end saying, okay, this is my business now. My business is my brand as a member of food media. What tips do you have for someone of what platforms they should lean into or what channels in terms of, say, not only marketing, but revenue? We got to make money.
Yeah. So I actually just posted like a very long, not recommended length Instagram video on this similar topic yesterday, and it was really talking about how the like post pub life, like it's been 4 months, and of course you're like marketing and PR, but what is it like for a book like Potluck Desserts, which is mission driven, queer focused?
Yes.
Like it came out in June during Pride. I think hindsight, maybe I would have argued we don't publish it in June because it's a very concentrated month of the same messaging of queerness, celebrate queerness. And so yes, it got great press coverage, but at the same time, it was competing with so much.
Yeah.
But I think subconsciously, when we think of potlucks, we typically think of the summer. And so now, like, my goal is to, like, how do I break this idea that Potluck Desserts was a summer book and you don't need to be thinking about it anymore? So how am I working on marketing and PR and positioning the narrative of this is a every month of the year cookbook, queer life is every month of the year? How are we talking about it? And so it's frustrating because like I have gotten a lot of great press and a lot of amazing surprises, like you just mentioned. And at the same time, you don't hear the great stuff. Like you get horrible reviews or like people who just are like, oh, it's a gay book, don't like you, I'm going to like burn you down on like Amazon or Goodreads. Or it's just a challenge of we're still learning in food media of like, how do we talk about queer domestic life? And I also think too, like we're just in a year in a world where everyone's just kind of like tiptoeing, like, how do we talk? How do we talk about stuff? But I think for advice, it's been a great opportunity for me to learn so much more about the process. Like, yes, there's a lot of work and focus of building up to the book being published, but I think you should at 6 months, 4 months before the book published, really start dialing in, like
Pushing
what marketing and PR you want. Don't fall into the trap of replicating what other people have done because it may not work for you, because you might only be replicating what worked for the book, not what your book is. But also think about, like, you should always be 6 to 4 months ahead of you. So, you know, you've got pub month and the months after that, but that when you're on tour and everything, like what is your messaging for the next few months? How do we keep this going? And I think what I'm experiencing is there are some people who want to like push back on that process of thinking, but I say advocate for yourself. I'm learning how to advocate for myself a lot more now, how to not come off seeming like angry and like ungrateful, but coming of where like, this is my experience, here's awareness. I know there are going to be future authors that might have these same questions or experiences. Be transparent. And so I'm learning that I think for social platforms, pick what works best for you. I am not on TikTok. I will not be on TikTok. I refuse TikTok. I am not Gen Z. I like, will not do it. I'm on Instagram because like I'm an OG elder millennial on Instagram. Like we love it. We helped social media with that. But I'm learning that I'm not a content farm. Like I'm not just going to be making content for the sake of the algorithm. Like I have integrity. Everything that I contribute and put out into the public was with intention. So be okay with that. Also, I just wrote a cookbook that has 75 recipes and I tested them a lot of times. Like I don't want to remake them at the current moment and film myself just to say, go buy my book. It doesn't work for me. But what I have found works for me is Substack. And my Substack is still very much in its infancy. For those first 6 months, it was like focused on the cookbook. Now I'm trying to figure out like, what does this look like? And as something that's not just for the cookbook. but it's fun because it's a community that allows trial and error, allows Substack newsletters to evolve and change. And so I say do that. Also, I have got more support, like marketing and PR wise, from Substack writers than traditional media. And I think we're going to start seeing so much more of that. I mean, I did that for Dan Pelosi in his book, Let's Party. Like, I did a Q&A with him, and he offered 2 recipes for me to put on my Substack. So I also think don't just rely on writers, rely on your peers and have a mutual relationship where we're bringing each other up at the same time, and we can champion each other and our successes and not feel that it's just always competition and we're out for only ourselves. Community, people, community.
Yes. I feel like that's where the shift is happening in media, where, yes, we're having some really scary moments, layoffs at Eater that we're not seeing coming from the rest of us, and these places that we all still love and cherish. But I like your point that there's this shift from, say, authority to authenticity as being the new metric for trust and for leaning into that. So I think it's one of those just sludgy moments from that perspective, and in many, but I do see a lot of light on the other side of it. It's just the new version. Yeah. We've got some of the best writers in the world who are killing it on Substack.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And I think too, like in the cookbook world, like just think about how many cookbooks come out in a year. I don't want to say it's oversaturated because then that says like people should stop writing cookbooks. I think it's just a lot of it coming out at the same time, and it's shared space but not shared space. And so like, how can you as a cookbook author talk about your cookbook but at the same time talk about other people's cookbooks that have just come out and not feel like, oh, it's gonna hurt my numbers? Because really it's a marathon, not a sprint. You want something to be able to be evergreen, something that people go to over and over and over again for years to come. And that is really what we should be focusing on. And like being cheerleaders for your peers and for your people in your community, and even those not in your community, but you are food peers, goes a long way.
100%. It really does. I think that was such good marketing and business advice for anyone in any industry as well, is that don't think you have to be on every single channel. Not every trending channel is for you. Focus on where your brand really fits, because that's what's going to pay off at the end of the day.
Yeah, 100%. And you're not exhausted.
Yeah, it's just a lot. Last few questions before the world's best and hardest question. What do you think is next for you? And what advice do you have for any entrepreneur, whether they're looking to go in culinary, media spaces, or something totally different?
Yeah, I think right now I'm trying to, like we just talked about, kind of like crack the code of what does marketing and PR look like for a cookbook now in 2025 and soon to be 2026. And how can I not only help my success, but at the same time provide resources or information or education that like I can give to Sally or I can give to someone else or share to hope to change the industry to evolve. So that's like my immediate, but then I don't want to be a one and done cookbook author. So I have a lot of ideas. Like my brain is like an incubator for like creative ideas. And I think some people still think that I'm going to open up a bakery or a restaurant, and that's just not the thing right now that I want to do. But writing for sure. I really would like to get more involved in like partnering with brands that have like good intentions, but not the big brands. I want to like work with smaller brands, and really would prefer to work with like queer owned brands and see what that looks like for me, because I really haven't done a lot of that, and I'm intrigued to see what that could look like. So yeah, I think I'm in that metamorphosis, like what did you just accomplish and what is it? What does it take you? I think for advice, it's probably going to be the opposite of what everyone says, but don't stay in one lane. Like,
I like this. Try lots of things.
Find an industry that you're interested in and identify the different aspects of that industry. So like for myself, like the food industry, I learned a lot of restaurant hospitality, front of house, back of house, the business side, the finances, the marketing, press. That then led me to food media, which are two connected. So really just learning, and also not be afraid to tap into your previous experiences or your education. Like I have a bachelor's in communication journalism. I have 2 masters in what we talked about. I am pulling from those experiences in what I'm doing right now in food, in writing. I think I am 100% using my social justice and advocacy experience and education. And don't be afraid to make a job that you want a job that doesn't exist. Like,
Yes.
make it yours. That is my advice.
That is excellent advice. And I appreciate that, because so many entrepreneurs, like, we just look at ourselves, we're like, we're generalists. We kind of like everything in this one thing. And it just teaches you, when you're obsessed with something, it's not hard to want to learn every little bit of it.
I think what I've learned about myself is that I am very much a creative. That's the brain that works for me. I'm an artist. I'm just now getting back into hobbies that I used to do as a teenager, like sketching and painting and crafting and doing all these things that I forgot are ways that like feel me and feel that creativity. And yeah, I don't know. It's a fun time, you know?
It is. I mean, these types of conversations definitely brighten my day. My hope is put these out there and inspire someone else to go do their own thing or try something new. So thank you.
Yeah.
Justin, we're at this time. The world's best and hardest question.
Okay.
So, a little reminder for everyone. This is called the perfect bite because it's a perfect bite of the value chain of all the folks who are building in food and bev, but it's also because we all have our own perfect bites. Those moments that just made us smile eating something, a recipe, a memory, something that is completely unique to your taste buds. So, Justin, what is your perfect bite?
Okay. So it's actually from a restaurant. It's from Pesh in New Orleans. And this was like a couple years ago. Like we just sat down and our server was like, hey, I'm so-and-so. Just so you know, we do actually have fish collar. It's not on the menu, but we are serving it like a special. She was like, they only have 2 left. And I like
Gotta get it.
gut react, like, I'll take it. And then they walked away and I'm like, what's the fish collar? It's like, I had never had fish collar at that point. And I thought that, I don't know, that touch of service of just like, hey, you may be interested in this. I will go snag it for you right now, was just nice.
Yeah.
When it came out, it was a gorgeous fish collar. And it was almost like a very feral experience because like you're picking up this collar and you're just like eating it.
Yeah.
But it had this delicious, like herbaceous, like chutney. And I don't really know exactly what the sauce was because I was not paying attention when they explained it to me, but it was very herbaceous and there was fruit in there. It was acidic, but the fish collar was just so light and tender, but had like a little bit of char to it. And there was a party happening with all the flavors and it worked so well. And I was just like, this is how I love to eat. It's rustic with your hands. It's clean, like that cleanness, not like I'm clean eating, but like just that like
Right.
freshness. It's just so clean. And I don't know, that was the perfect bite for me. And I think about that fish call like
So
literally
cool.
at least once a week. People when they ask me like, where should I go to New Orleans? I'm like, Pesh. Hopefully they have a fish call for you.
So unique. And I like too that you're like, yes, this is not a pastry, this is not a sweet treat, but it is the exact style of food that really speaks to you and resonates with you.
Do you want
Thank
to know
you.
something embarrassing about me? I don't have a sweet tooth.
But you,
Oh, yeah. Yep. I know.
it's fine. We're going to eat it all for you. Don't worry. I should cut down on mine. Justin, this has been incredible. Thank you so much for your time, your stories, your wisdom.
Thank you so
Can
much.
you let listeners know where they can find you? So the social accounts, any websites, and
Yep.
where they can buy Potluck Desserts.
So I'm on Instagram, Justin T.S. Burke. And then my Substack is called Taste This. And those are the 2 social platforms that I'm predominantly on. And then Potluck Desserts, you can find it at your preferred bookseller, but I am a big fan of small independent bookstores. So most likely it's there. If not, you can also ask them to get it for you, and they would be more than happy to. So don't be afraid to suggest to a bookstore that they carry a book that you want, like Potluck Desserts.
I love that. Everyone go to your local bookstores because maybe they're back and they're better than ever.
They're fantastic.
I'm so happy. I love bookstores.
They're fantastic. They're having a moment, and I'm happy for them.
Same. Well, everyone, thank you again so much for listening in. This was Justin Burke's Perfect Bite.
Thanks for tuning in to The Perfect Bite today. You can listen to future episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. Thanks in advance for subscribing, rating, and reviewing. You can follow The Perfect Bite on social media at Perfect Bite Pod. Now go get something good to eat.